Hello and welcome to episode 1374 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, Valentine's Day. Good morning, Justin, and happy Valentine's. How's it going?
Happy Valentine's Day, my work wife.
That's right. I appreciate that. We are each other's baseball Valentines. Do you have a
hmm
baseball Valentine right now in your drafts at all? Is there anybody that in your early drafts you've been getting a few different times? Has anybody emerged?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. Actually, I wrote an article last night for Fantasy Pros, my top guys at every position. So
Mm-hmm.
that should be up today at some point. I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach's my dude, right? Like,
Love it.
I absolutely just love Schwelly. So, but for me, like, it's Schwellenbach. It's probably Wilson Contreras is high up on there. Lawrence Butler. I'm not a monogamous fantasy baseball player, right?
Me
I'm in
neither. Me
multiple
neither.
leagues, multiple teams, multiple players.
I am absolutely with you there. Somebody who is jumping out is honestly somebody who would have fit in this spot last year. I can't shut up about Gavin Lux again. He's already on a few different teams. So I'm definitely there. Somebody that we're actually going to talk to, we'll use this as a segue into our first topic because I actually got a couple of shares of him while the price was kind of hanging in the balance as we didn't know where Alex Bregman was going to go. So I would consider him one of my early Valentines with a few shares. And now he's got his landing spot. And this is one of those splits where it's my fantasy brain says absolutely yes, and my fandom brain is broken, or my fandom heart, I should say, is broken because I really wanted Alex Bregman to go to the Tigers. I think it would have given the team a plus 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 off season, perfect capper to kind of go on top of it. Unfortunately, he chooses Boston, but again, that is definitely a much better spot for fantasy purposes. They're a deeper lineup. Fenway's better. Yeah, it's a more difficult division, but who cares? I'll trade that all day. Bregman in Boston, what'd you think? Because we kept hearing that there were a few teams left. Houston was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Cubs, Tigers, those were the real two front runners, and then Boston was lurking, and they end up winning it on a 3 year, 120 mil. So 40 a pop with a chance to get out each year. What'd you think when you first saw the news on Bregs to Boston?
I mean, I was a little shocked. Not that like Boston ended up winning the battle, but what they won it with. Like, how can Houston not do this? And like,
That surprised me that they wouldn't do that. And I would have been totally fine with the Tigers doing that. Like I
yeah.
think that that's a good gamble. He's got a skill set that should age
hmm
well. Like that this was a win-win. Kudos to Boston. They've
Uh,
had a wonderful
yeah.
offseason.
Yeah, I was a little surprised because there were reports that they weren't really interested in Bregman because they're more interested in bringing in Vlad Guerrero Jr. next offseason and they're
Right.
trying to save the money. But more often than not, these kind of deals result in the player opting out and retesting the market.
True.
So
If he's good, he's
yeah,
probably going to jump back in anyway. And by the way, very interesting piece. I think probably the most interesting piece here, because if he had gone to the Tigers, he'd just play straight up third base. He's slotted to be the second baseman with Devers still staying at third at least one more
hmm
year. And that's obviously huge because now he's going to be second, third, corner mid. We love guys like that. How much is that boosting his value for you with Bregman now acquiring second base, early into the season?
I mean, it moves him up a little bit for me, but I don't. I mean, I really, I guess it depends on what kind of format you're in, right? And like a draft
Sure.
champions, it definitely moves him up because you really need that roster flexibility. So him gaining that in season is going to be great because we love those guys who can play corner and middle at the same time.
Very
So,
nice.
uh, and I guess because second base is such a weird position, though, I think second base is a lot deeper than maybe people give credit for, as we discussed last or a few episodes ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we were
There
pretty
got
hot on some of those mid and lower tier second basemen that are
yeah.
pretty sneaky.
I think for me, it's more of a tiebreaker. Like if
Yeah,
I was kind of torn between two players, now Bregman moves ahead of that other player just because he's gonna pick up that eligibility. So, but I'm not like a huge Bregman guy. The only thing with Bregman is I feel like he's constantly underrated in drafts.
right. And
Like,
to that point, 150 ADP right now, but that is surging. The recent drafts, and again, when you go onto the NFPC page, you click their profile, you can see the little dot plot there of their recent drafts. Don't know if they're DCs or something else, so I want to be clear on that. But it's surging. He's in the
Hmm.
top 100 quite a bit. Even the ones that are outside the top 100 are still above this 150 mark. Haven't really seen him go that low pretty much since the signing here. Let's say that he gets to like the Jake Berger level. He's got a 118 ADP right
Taking
now.
burger all day long.
Okay, and then Jordan Westberg's there at 95. If I know you didn't like Westberg quite as much and you like Berger more, what is your area of Bregman that you would pay though? Does it have to be after Berger specifically, like 120 something then for Bregman?
Yeah, probably. I think that's where I'm at.
I think I'm gonna use the cop out that I never let you use. I think I would use team construction between Berger and Bregman. But Berger's power and going to Texas, I'm keen on that. I'm really
Yeah.
excited to see what he can do out there. But I do like this Bregman situation. I think as something in the early 100s, I can get behind. Like I said, I've already got a few shares in this 150, 160 range. So I don't have to, necessarily keep stacking up. I can take my cheap shares and kind of see how those play out for Bregman and not necessarily pay the new premium. But yeah, he's definitely rising. The community is psyched with him going to Boston, and you're going to have to pay now. So if you liked Bregman, you should have been getting those off-season shares because now, yeah, you're going to pay something in between Westberg and Berger, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, like it really, I mean, obviously team construction plays a role in it, but also your format, right? Like
Right.
Bregman has added value in on base percentage leagues. I mean, last year was pretty much the first year of his career where he was sub 11% walk rate. You got
Hmm.
to think that's coming back, right? Like he's
Yeah.
he's still just a very patient guy. I just think that was kind of a down season for him.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
7% sticks out like a sore thumb for him. We've never seen that out of Bregman, and I don't think he just forgot his plate skills.
no, I mean he did swing outside the zone a little bit more and swung inside the zone a little bit more, but like I think ultimately he'll just kind of go back to being the guy that he's always been in Boston.
Yep.
So like on base percentage leagues, he gets a huge bump up. And in deeper formats, he gets a huge bump up. Remember when like there was concerns about like Alex Bregman's health? Like
Hmm.
whether or not he was going to be able to like play a full season at
Right.
times.
Because
Uh
he missed a little bit of the 2020 season, even only
yep.
played 42 of those 60, and then just 91 games in 2021. And we're starting to say, uh-oh, late 20s, is this going to become a problem? 155, 161,
Yeah.
145. So a little bit of missed time last year, but I'll take 145 any day of the week.
Yeah. 548 plate appearances or more in each of the last 3 seasons. Like
Sign me up for that.
so your deeper leagues, right? Like you should bump him up a little bit because he's going to be pretty stable. That's going to be a really good Red Sox lineup. So, yeah, I mean, if you're in a deeper format, you should probably bump up Bregman a little bit more.
And when we get to the hot corner, we will have more data to really get an
Yeah.
idea of exactly where this ADP is going to land. So we'll follow up with him in a few episodes there when we move over to the hot corner. But let's keep going here because we got another big signing that I think is really shocking because this team was talking about how they were going to be shaving money. And they've pivoted 180 here. No pun intended there because they signed Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta is going to be signed from the San Diego Padres, and they declared that they're going to keep Dylan Cease and company, Michael King, and those were the two guys specifically mentioned in the report I saw. That they're no longer trying to trade one of those two. Doesn't mean they couldn't move a Robert Suarez or somebody else, but as far as their starters, they're keeping the rotation together there in San Diego. Obviously, they've been dealing with some turmoil. They lost their owner, when he passed away. The family still owns the team, but these sons, right? We were seeing this trend with these sons that just are not spending the way their fathers did. But now, if they're going to commit to keeping their rotation together, that's going to be Cease, King, Darvish, Pivetta. We'll see who gets the fifth starter's role. Like I said, I still think that they could trade Robert Suarez, and I don't necessarily think that that's a terrible idea. As much as I like him,
Hmm.
that's a way to save some money because they got Jason Adam and Jeremiah Estrada right there, who can both, I think, close more than adequately. So that's probably just an extra expenditure at closer that they could save some money on and pivot. But let's talk Pivetta. He was kind of lurking out there. I'm still stunned he didn't take the QO, but maybe egg on my face because he ended up getting a nice deal here. So I really thought he should have taken it. but he got this nice 4-year deal with the Padres for, let's see here, he gets $3 million bonus, $55 million, and it's
Yeah.
backloaded, right? Because
Hmm.
obviously, with the way things are going with their money, that's part of what they have to do now. They say, hey, we'll pay you later. What do you think of Pavetta out in San Diego?
I wonder if this is really kind of showing the Padres' hands in terms of trading Dylan Cease. Like they've got the Dylan Cease replacement here.
They did,
Um,
but then, like I said, immediately after the trade, they did say like, we're going to keep him. I mean, that doesn't mean that it's locked and
yeah,
loaded, right? We've seen teams, I don't want to say lie because it's not necessarily that, but
yeah,
we've seen teams say things before and then turn around and then something gets done, right? What if somebody, ups their offer or whatever? But yeah, the MLB trade rumor, like right after this, was Padres reportedly expected to keep Cease and King now and run it with this deep rotation, because don't forget, no Joe Musgrove this year.
yeah.
So that's why the fifth spot is open right now. Cal Hart is penciled in. I don't think that that's who they, want to go into the season with. But yeah, I am curious if they make a move somewhere. Would it be Cease and they're smoke screening us, or do they go to like Suarez, like I was saying earlier?
Yeah, I didn't see that report that they were planning on keeping Cease, but if they are, like, this is a pretty good rotation right here, right?
Right.
Like,
Top four
you've
is
got,
nice.
yeah, Cease, King, Darvish, Pavetta, and then right now we have Kyle Hart penciled in, probably because he's a lefty. Um,
Waldron,
but
the knuckleballer, I think could get an
yeah,
opportunity. Randy Vasquez is still lurking
Johnny
with some
Burrito
prospect
is there.
status. Yeah, they've got
So
some
this
arms. I think it'll be
Luis
an open fight.
Patino is on this team, so and out of options. So
Mm-hmm.
like there's a number of guys they could kind of go to. It just really lengthens their rotation. And yeah, I mean, good for them that they actually went out and spent some money in spite of the fact that they are dealing with a bunch of financial issues. I
Yeah,
do like Pavetta in San Diego. It's a great place to pitch.
so he's out of Boston, where he's been the last 4 years, and he's had a mixed bag of success. The ERA is always above 4, though, because he's a home run monster. 1.4, 1.4, 1.5, 1.7 last year. But I will say this. Despite a 1.7 homer per nine, which is just obscene, he still put up a 4.14 ERA. Like, that's really good ERA for that many homers. And he didn't walk guys. He had a 6% walk rate, a career best, and he still had a 29% K rate,
Yeah.
and a 113 whip. So, like, there were aspects to like here. You think San Diego has a chance, the park and environment out there has a chance to start cutting into these homers for Pavetta?
Well, I originally did, and then I went and looked at his X home runs in San Diego versus Boston, and maybe not. So his X, he gave up 28 home runs last year. So but his X home runs in Boston, where he spends half of his games, was 20. His
Mm-hmm.
X home run in San Diego is 29. So maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. I mean, again, and it's a historic, like it's a career-long issue. He's never not
Yeah.
given up homers at a high clip. His best home run rate for Pavetta is 1.3. Now he's played in Philly and Boston, so two parks that inflate homers, and you're in the East, usually tougher divisions. Both Easts are usually pretty difficult. So like, it's not like going to the West. The NL West is super easy though, because you got the Dodgers, you got the D-backs, a team that we think is going to be very good, and you have to go to Coors at least a few times. So I don't know. It still gives me a little pause. Are you going to project him for an ERA still in the 4s here?
Yeah, I think I will.
I think
Um,
Pavetta has to. You got to start with a 4, but don't sleep on a 112 and 113 whip the last 2 years.
mhm.
These guys are sneaky. Whenever it's the higher ERA and great whip, I always feel like those guys are underpriced versus the reverse, like a
Yep.
Robbie Ray type, where the ERA is under 4, but the whip is like 125, 130. So Pavetta could be sneaky, and I know my boy Greg, if he's listening, is nodding his head right now. He's a big Pavetta guy, and I think he's going to like this move out to San Diego. It might not like fix his home run issue, but even if he shaves it down to like 125, you can live with that if you're not walking anybody. And then of course the strikeouts are there too. So this is a good signing. I like what San Diego's doing, and again, I like their commitment to saying, hey, at least as it stands right now, we're not going to trade King or Cease. We're going to run it with this nice rotation right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, mhm. I'm just kind of looking at all the park factors in Boston versus San Diego. So for right-handed hitters in
Mm-hmm.
Boston, they have. Let's see, where's Boston? Why am I? Oh, Boston's the 17th best, so it's kind of a neutral field for righties.
Yeah, because you got to
Well,
get over the monster, right? Like you can beat the
yeah,
ball off the monster a bunch for doubles, but to get homers, you still got to get it up.
Petco 111.
Ooh, that's
So
sneaky
pre
high.
pretty good for right-handed power. Yeah, so I'm not thinking that like San Diego gonna cure any ills in terms of the home run problem. Like you said, like Veta always he's been the Charlie Brown of like the fantasy industry, right?
Right.
Like era well the fantasy industry would be Charlie Brown on him, I guess, because we keep going, hey,
We
look at
keep
these
trying to kick the
skills.
football. Yeah.
Look at these like 30% strikeout rates that Nick Pavetta's putting up. And he's just got to put it together, and he never puts it together. And I mean, part of the problem, go over to Statcast, his Statcast page, and like look at his heat maps and where they're red. Like, yeah,
Yep.
like it's like middle of the plate. Like, dude, just leave stuff over the plate randomly. So I think he'll be who he's always been.
I think
So
so. That, that,
that's
that,
about
that's
it.
what
Yeah.
that's where I'm at with Pavetta. I think it's a fine move for San Diego. If you like him, I think you can get him at a fair price. In fact, let me take a look at his price point right now. It was down around pick 200. It'll probably go up a bit. We always see a little trickle up for guys when they sign, especially if they sign in a good spot. This will be regarded as a good spot, but as you dug into the numbers there, it's not the fix.
Yeah.
San Diego's
No.
not the fix for Pavetta, but it's not a bad spot either. So,
Yeah,
decent
it's
move
better
there.
than him going to like a really bad team. Like
Right,
at
right.
least he'll be in line for wins. He'll get his strikeouts. His whip will be, palatable. But yeah, probably a 4.15 ERA type of dude.
Yep, yep. So you're looking for the good whip and the strikeouts, just
I,
protect the ZRA elsewhere.
I will say like his X ERA was actually really good. So like
Well,
uh
because those skills, I mean,
yeah,
29% K, 6% walk. I'm not surprised to hear you say that.
351. So like that's that is somewhat intriguing, but he's like you kind of alluded to right there, like often has had like a much higher ERA than his deserved ERA.
Yeah, that is directly the homers, right?
Yeah.
Because some of those statistics are neutralizing the
Yeah.
homers for him and saying like, hey, if you could ever figure this out, this is what you could get. So, all right, in the least surprising move of the offseason, Clayton Kershaw going back to the Dodgers. Dadoy. Nobody was surprised about that. I don't know. We've seen some studs move around, but Kershaw just seems like a Dodgers lifer, and as long as they're going to
Yeah.
keep paying him, he's going to be, he's going to keep coming around. And he's slated to miss some time for sure, right? I think he's not pitching until
Yeah, I wouldn't
like
expect him.
June, maybe even. Yeah, he's going on the 60 day IL immediately. So
Yeah.
we're really looking at, like I said, like a June, a summer start. He's a half season kind of guy. Is there anywhere you draft Kershaw? Do you take him
No.
into DC? Okay, I didn't think so. Because I don't even want, when you got 2 months locked in missed, I know he can be good when he comes back, right? Like he's still a competent
Mhm.
pitcher, but like that's a dead roster spot. It's a 49 player draft at that point
The
until the
only
summer.
place for drafting Kershaw is in like so in Tout Wars and I think Labor too. Both of their mixed league auctions are unlimited IL spots.
Right.
Like you got like
Throw a
okay,
buck,
throw a
store
buck
him.
on him, throw him on your reserve list, and then store him until he's back because Clayton Kershaw, when he's pitching, is still a very good pitcher.
And he can
Like
get a dub just by rolling out
yeah,
there.
but I mean, like at this point, like the strikeout rate disappeared last year.
Hmm.
Uh, so like I don't expect him necessarily to be a star, but in a deep mixer, like hey, if you have like a crap ton, and I mean a crap ton of IL spots,
Right. Either
yeah,
unlimited or like 7+. Like
I'd say even more, like 10 plus.
that's
Like
fair. I got no problem with saying that it has to be a lot there to take Kershaw because otherwise you're just waiting. And yeah, I'm not gonna jump on this right now. The league types I play are not gonna facilitate it. Draft champions. Again, we talk about it a lot. It's 50 rounds, so you feel like, oh, I can store a guy. It catches
no,
up to you fast, folks.
yeah,
The new injuries will start cropping up, and then you're like, you got Kershaw who's a dead spot. And then all of a sudden you're hunting for a pitcher and you're using the middle reliever that you drafted in the 48th one. So
yeah.
it's a
What
pass for me with Kersh.
if you go back and look at the teams that win the draft champions overall, and I mean pretty much just Steve Weimer's teams.
And Rob
They're
DiPietro.
yeah, and Rob DiPietro is like great. Like these guys live by volume. Volume
Yep.
wins those leagues.
Yep.
And so
Not these
like
specs that are gonna like not pan out until the summer.
a guy like Kershaw just does not have that kind of volume in it. Like he's gonna be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Absolutely
Hmm.
deserves to be one of the greatest pitchers of our generation, but not someone you're drafting for fantasy.
Yep. Yep. His time is just, his time's passed as far as being a fantasy god. All right, let's get back into the shortstop here. And we're digging back into your tiers. And we're in tier four right now, and these are kind of like the boring accumulator solid guys. There's a tinge of upside, right? Any of these five could break out, but you're drafting them for kind of a steady baseline, and you're going from there. Bryson Stott, Dansby Swanson, Jeremy Pena, Xander Bogaerts, and Mason Wynn. Let's take them in order. Let's start with Bryson Stott. Ended up having a pretty decent season out in Philly, following up a bit of a breakout in 23 here. I know his speed was, I'm pulling up his numbers, that's why I'm vamping here. Yeah, speed was the major component
Yeah.
here. Back-to-back 30 plus steal seasons now, 31 and 32, only 3 caughts in each of the seasons. His power fell off a little bit from 15 to 11 homers. The real dip was the batting average. It dropped from 280 to 245. So the real question here with Stott is, who's the real guy? Is it the classic somewhere in between, or do you have him getting all the way back to the 280? Or are you more concerned that he could be in the lower end, 245? Because he also hit 234 back in 2022. So where are we with Stott and his batting average specifically right now?
I think the batting average will bounce back. Maybe not all the way back, but I think he will definitely bounce back to like a 250, 260-ish kind of range.
Okay.
He was dealing with an elbow issue all last year, and I think that really kind of limited him. Uh, that being said, I do have some concerns on Stott, and I keep kind of going back and forth because at first I was really, really high on Stott, and then I can't remember who it was that pointed it out to me, but so I wish I could give them credit, but like they mentioned, like he's really, really struggling against left-handed
Yeah.
pitchers. It
To
might
the
have been
point
Dave.
to the point where right now we've got him penciled into a platoon, batting,
Yeah,
deep in the order, and with the red L, which on the roster resource means that platoon is likely. And so an Edmundo Sosa or a Weston Wilson could eat up some of that playing time there because he's just not hitting lefties consistently. Stop.
yeah. I mean, he had one home run against lefties last year, hit 223, and he's not a bad defender by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not a great defender where you can go, well, his defense will keep him in there even against lefties.
Right.
So I think you have to kind of cap the plate appearances a little bit on Stott, which is a problem because Stott, in many ways, is an accumulator with a lot of speed. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I still think he'll get his around 30 bags, probably get back to double digit home runs and like a 256, 260-ish kind of batting average. But I think everything kind of just takes a little bit of hit. And so I think if you're thinking he's going to go back to 2023 numbers, I'm going to say I think he's probably closer to those 2024 numbers.
So I looked up a bunch of the guys that we talked about at second base. Stott was the one I forgot. My bad on that. Obviously, he's part of second base. He qualifies at shortstop where you have lighter qualifications. He played
Mm,
14 games there. So again, I did go review a bunch of the guys that we're going to talk about later from second base, but I forgot to go see what we said about Stott. But I'm sure it was something similar here because, yeah, the
mm.
batting average dipped. He's platoon risk. You don't see a ton of power. And if he's not playing all the time, can you get another 30 steals? So I think he's a little bit dicey. Pick 179 is fair, though. I will say that. Like the market is not overvaluing him. He's got a wide range, though. And this is just in the last month, 48 DCs. He goes between 138 and 225. That's his range. That's crazy. First off, who the hell is taking him at 138? Maybe somebody desperate for the speed. But at the upper range, if he's going past pick 200, I really don't mind Stott at that point. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Dansby, you want to talk about boring at this point? Yeah, that's what he is. He's got a 174 ADP with a tighter range, 152, 204. He just kind of, he kind of is who he is, right? He had the huge first year with the Cubs last year. a little bit more pedestrian. Came down. I guess huge year overstates it a little bit for 2023, but 22 homers, 9 steals, 244 average, 16, 19, and 242 last year. So from a fantasy perspective, it might have actually been a tinge better, even though his slash line was worse because the extra 10 steals. I don't know. Would you trade 8 homers for 10 steals?
No,
I don't think
not
so because you,
not in today's environment.
yeah, you also lost 14 ribbies. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was a dip down, but he is a stalwart, right? If he's healthy, he plays every day at short, locked and loaded. Now he missed a few games each of the last 2 years, 147, 149 for Swanson, but he is one of those guys that like ink him into the lineup anytime he's upright and ready to go at short. Where do we go from here? Because we've seen, the steals kind of bouncing around 9, 18, 9, 19, and then the power kind of slowly evaporating 27, 25 to 16. Age 31 this year. Where are we at on Dansby Swanson with the Cubs?
I have a hard time with Swanson. Like he was one of those guys that I mean, everybody knows how much I hated Dansby Swanson for
Right?
years. And then once he actually broke out, I took the L that year. I did not take the L for every other year, just that year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually wearing, I think, I was wearing the Dansby Swanson Justin Mason t-shirt yesterday because I did TikTok on it. But I don't love some of the underlying skills on Swanson. Now he's always kind of, or not always, but really for the last 7 years has been kind of a bad, or his last 6 years have been kind of a bad zone contact guy. And the last 2 years, the last 3 years actually, it's dipped below 80%. And so I do wonder as he starts to get into his 30s, and he's now in his 30s, if we're going to start seeing that in the batting average. And we saw that last year when he hit 242
Yeah.
with an XBA of 244. And I wonder if that is just a sign of more things to come with Swanson.
And
So,
the only time we've seen good batting averages is when he's run 350 BABIPs.
mhm.
Literally a 350 in the 2020 season and then 348 in 2022. He spiked his average up into the 270s both those years, but otherwise it's a 240 something average. So 240 with, we'll give him the benefit. We'll kind of split the middle there on the homers, call it 18 and low double digit steals. It's kind of boring. Like it's just kind of a boring accumulator, which has
Yeah.
some value. And again,
Mhm.
I think 174 is not a terrible price, but I don't run to the draft table to get Dansby Swanson. He's more of like, oh, I don't have shortstop yet. I guess I'll take Dansby and pencil in 600
Yeah.
plate appearances of mediocrity.
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Okay, let's go to Jeremy Pena, who broke through originally, looking like the next big thing in Houston, and it hasn't quite continued that way from a fantasy perspective. Now, I will say from a real life perspective, it has been because he started with 5 WAR, and then the last 2 years have been 4 WAR. So they're pretty happy with what they've got. But he went 22-11 in that first year. And I think that misled some folks into what he was going to be because now he has 25 total homers the next 2 years, both full seasons, by the way, with 13 and 20 steals and 260 something averages each of the 2 years. So again, not bad, but that power was a bit of a mirage. I think he got hot and made it look like he was more of a power guy than he is. Pick 161. So again, not a terrible price point here. I don't mind Pena, but this is another reason why I probably wouldn't take Dansby Swanson. I think I would probably just take Pena, right around that same area there. But where are we at on Pena? Where does he go from here? Is he just more of the same?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Dansby Swanson comp in some ways is really, really interesting because, at least for me, because Pena was a dude that I was not really buying in on after his rookie season, and I know a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people
Same.
who were really, really big fans, but I just kind of saw this guy as like, hey, I think this is just a hot stretch that he had in a little bit shorter of a sample. I don't believe in the power, and then we had a deader ball the last couple years, and we've kind of see like, oh yeah, he's probably a mid-teens homer dude with some speed, and but he could put up some decent averages. He's at 266 and 263 each of the last 2 years. He does make a lot of in zone contact, so I think the comp to a guy like Swanson is kind of ends when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is kind of what you said, which is a pretty darn good accumulator So like in deeper leagues, I like Pena a lot, especially if I can get him as my MI.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely
because I
agree there.
like, yeah, I mean, he's had 650 plate appearances last year, 634 the year before. Yeah, so for your deeper leagues, I like Pena as a guy that he's not going to be a league winner. Like if you're
Right.
looking for a league winner, you look somewhere else. But if you're looking for a glue guy, yeah, Pena is a glue guy.
Take your teens with a 260 average and be happy with it. I think that's totally
Yeah.
fine. Age 27 is magic, so maybe he's going to hit 40
Mm-hmm.
homers this year. We love making that joke about the age 27 season. Again, for our younger listeners, it was a whole thing in the early internet era. People
Yeah.
thought you would just magically get better at age 27. Now,
There was
we don't need to
literal
compare.
there were literal articles and podcasts built around the age 27
Just
season.
because they were 27. Whether
Yeah.
they had skills that suggested that it was time for a
Yeah.
breakout or not, it was just that they were
I
27
I
because
remember
that's when the
reading
prime
articles,
was.
yeah, on ESPN and CBS and Yahoo, like, who's age 27 this year?
It's time for the age 27 breakout. The funny thing is too is that timetable's moved up these days, right? Like guys breaking out a lot more at like 24, 25 anyway. So I think even the age would be different. But either way, Pena is who he is. I think pick 161 there for him at age 27. Absolutely no problem with it. And like you said, if he's your MI, then you're really sitting pretty. But I don't even mind him if I waited on shortstop. I'm okay with that. Let's talk Xander. Xander Bogaerts. We're kind of going in reverse order here on the ADP, but
Mhm.
we're going with regards to how you had them ranked. And Xander's actually up at pick 148, still out in San Diego. I'm surprised they didn't try to trade it. Well, maybe they did, and nobody wants that contract. But that would be some money that they could have saved. As much as I love Xander, I can't get over how bad that deal was. It
Yeah.
just never made sense to me. And he's kind of another steady Eddie. Like these guys, you group them all together for a reason. They are just kind of the boring accumulators. The only thing that really slowed Xander down last year was an injury. He missed a good bit of time, only played 111 games, but did go 11-13 with the 264 average in the time that he played. So more or less who Xander is. Are you expecting more of the same again this year?
Yeah, I think if he's healthy, he's just going to be kind of an accumulator, dude. Could go 15-15, maybe even better with a good average. I think the average bounces back,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to kind of where it's been through his career. But a lot of it comes down to health. He was really kind of nicked up a lot last season. The underlying skills were still good. 91% zone contact is fantastic. I love to see that. And like I said, I do think the batting average will kind of bounce back with that as long as he's healthy. The question is, we're now talking about a guy who is 32. Uh,
Yep.
are we really expecting him to volume the way that he has, especially coming off an injury? So that's why he's a little bit lower on my ranks, is I just wasn't super comfortable to project Xander Bogaerts for 650 plate appearances.
And we did like him a little bit better at second base because he already qualifies for
Mhm.
second and short. He's moving back to short this year, but he already qualifies there in any league format. So you got the dual eligibility already. And I think because we were talking about the depth of second base, even though we ended up liking some of that mid and late tier, he was a little bit more valuable there. So I think if I do draft Xander, I'm probably slotting him in at second. But obviously, that's something that you can maneuver during your draft. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I pretty much co sign that. I think if he's healthy, he's totally fine. And pick 148 isn't bad. But again, I'm not chasing him the way I used to be a couple
Yeah.
years ago when I was super hot on Xander. All right, finishing off this tier is Mason Wynn. He's the newcomer here, right? He's the young buck. But I think you got it placed right. I think he's already somebody who can be here because he reminds me a lot of Jeremy Pena, a
Yeah.
quality defender 15-15 type. He went 15 and 11 last year. So, teens type situation, 267 average. He's only 23 though. Is there growth here or is he just going to kind of round right into the Jeremy Pena mold right away?
There might be some growth in Mason Wynn, but I don't think it is in the place where other people probably want it to be. I think when you talk about growth, people are like, "Oh, are we going to get some more homers? Are we going to get some more stolen bases?" I don't think so. I think that is. I think he probably is who he was last year, which is a teens homers dude. and
Hmm.
a double-digit stolen base guy, maybe more stolen bases. He does have speed, so
Sure.
but that
And if he
that's
gets on base a bit more, sorry to interrupt you. If he gets on
yeah.
base a bit more, maybe we could see that spike closer to 20. But I'm with you. Keep the power in the teens. And I would not be projecting much higher right now until we see a reason to do that. Like just being young does not guarantee that you can have growth. And there's really nothing in his profile that suggests that a power spike is coming.
Yeah, and St. Louis is just not a team that runs a ton. They had 91 stolen bases. That was
Hmm.
22nd in baseball. So, and I mean, just leaps and bounds below a lot of the teams kind of in the middle of the pack and the upper tiers. So, St. Louis isn't a team that runs a ton. So, I'm not expecting that to change necessarily. If they do come in and we've seen like in spring training, like, oh, the Cardinals are running. Then maybe we go, okay, let's bump up the Cardinals stolen base numbers. But I think where you could see growth is in the hit tool and the batting average. Dude makes a
Yes.
lot of in zone contact. Now he doesn't strike the ball particularly hard, so it may not kind of change for him. I mean, he had 87 average, 87 mile per hour average exit velocity, and a 33% hard hit percentage. Those numbers aren't very good, but he does have a max exit velocity of 111. So, like, there is a little bit of power in there
And
in terms of hitting the ball hard.
if more ground balls start to find holes, 303 BABIP is totally fine. But if he spikes something in like the 320s, 330s, you could get like a 280 something average out of Mason Wynn.
Yeah,
Like that would be your upside there, and then tack on a few more steals perhaps. He'll be leading off all year this year too. He had 102 games there last year out of his let's see, he had, out of 150. So, he's going to be up there a bunch. The volume should be high, and I think it'll be perfectly solid. He's a pick 151 ADP. I got zero problems with that if you're a Mason Wynn guy.
yeah,
All right, let's move to our next tier here. We did discuss Matt McLain at second base. We're still in, but the price is high. And I talked about how if it keeps going up, maybe I tap the brakes a little bit. That's why I'm glad I got some winter shares because I want to be in, but the market has not cooled on Matt McLain at all. Your boy Ezekiel Tovar, which I say with the utmost of sarcasm, we will talk about how you're not a big fan. Bo Bichette, Zach Neto, Joey Ortiz, Ha-Sung Kim, who's now signed with Tampa Bay, and Tommy Edman. So again, do you have anything to add on McLain? Like I said, last time we talked about him, he was just inside the top 100 ADP. That's where he still is. And I remember I expressed a little bit of doubt of like, if it keeps going up, which I'm looking at the recent drafts, he's in the top 60 now. So McLain is hot.
yeah.
Anything to add there on him that we from what we said last time?
If you have an early draft, so like I have not this weekend, but next week I have kind of my next draft. And this I've been jonesing, been waiting all off season to get another draft in, and finally I have the Barf League draft coming up here at the Rec Room in San Francisco. So if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, a week from Saturday, definitely make sure you go out
I'm in
and
the Earth League this year.
I know I'm
I'm doing the
excited. You're in
Texas
Tarv,
one.
right?
Yeah, I'm in Tarp.
Where are you guys in
I
Austin?
think
Or are you
downtown
guys?
Austin. Yeah, I think we'll be in
Oh, that's
downtown
that's
Austin.
perfect.
So
So,
I'm excited.
uh, yeah, Tarf's got some good people,
Yeah.
including have we had Dustin McComas on the show?
We haven't, and we need to remedy that
Yeah,
100%. But yeah, you got Dustin and Rudy. I'm very excited. The guy's been trying to get me in. It's really just been a time thing. It hasn't been like a desire thing. And
hmm
this year they got to me early, and I said, you know what? I'm in, boys. Let's go. So I'm excited for that. But you were
yeah,
saying like maybe you would draft McLean early
yeah. No, no,
in
no.
an earlier draft.
I
Oh,
would not draft him. I want to see him on the field. I know
got
that
it,
he
got it,
played
got
in
it.
Arizona Fall League, but I haven't had eyes on him, and so until I
Mm-hmm.
see him, especially with the price going up into like the fourth, fifth rounds, like
Yeah,
that's a gamble.
it's
Uh,
pricey, man.
a guy missed all of last season. Like, so until I see that, I'm probably not going to draft McLean. He's gonna kind of stay in my ranks where he is. But a month from now, when we're in the heat of March drafts and we've
Mm-hmm.
seen him play like 2 weeks of spring training games, he may rocket up my ranks. So if you are the gambling type and you go, hey, there's going to be heat on this guy because I think he's just going to go up and up. Uh, then maybe you want to take the gamble. I'm not. I'm much more of a conservative drafter in that regard. But I totally understand why people are taking him here. I mean, he is a premium accumulator on a team that I think is going to be much better offensively and is probably the best park to hit in baseball. So I understand why people are going to go after Matt McLain. I just need to see him play first.
Yep. Like I said, I got some winter shares here. In fact, I'm looking up my price point right now, and it was outside the top 135. In fact, it was pick 130. So that was back in a Gladiator. Cool. I'll take that share. And I'm with you. I could see myself paying the premium in spring if everything's looking great. But right now,
Yeah.
I'm just a little bit nervous, and I do want to see a little something out of Matt McLain. The market is hyped on him. All right, let's talk about your least favorite player ever, Ezekiel Tovar. Now, despite the fact that his OBP was like 5, 295 to be exact, but despite that wretched OBP, he hit 269 with 26 homers, and he was 6 for 11 on the bases, so not the best base stealer. This is classic. This is what Coors can do for you. This is how it can raise your floor. He had a 344 BABIP, and he ripped 26 bombs, but that's a pretty good season. Are you moved by that at all? Is there anything here that is changing your tune? I know you have concerns, and a sub 300 OBP is a very good reason to have concern. 29% K, 3% walk. Like that's dog shit. That's such a bad plate skill profile there for the strikeouts and walks. He'll be 23 though. He's a baby. He's got 2 full seasons under his belt. I got to be honest, I've grown a little bit more keen on Tovar this draft season. I know you're not super hot on him, and I imagine you're probably still not, but what'd you think after the 26-6, 269 season last year from Tovar?
All right. I'm going to ask you, I don't know if you're looking this up already, but what do you think his swing strike rate was in 2024?
I don't know it, so I'm giving an honest guess here. I'm going to say like 14%.
19.2%.
Jesus.
81% zone contact.
Even the 14 would have been bad.
His O swing was 45%. If you've listened to this podcast at all before, those are numbers that you know I don't like. That scare the crap out of me. So no, I'm not back. I'm not in. Yes, he benefited by Coors. He got lucky in kind of his homer rate.
Can I also point out real quick, just he did have a 13-13 split on the homers, home and away. So it wasn't just Coors that he took advantage of. It boosted his batting average. He hit 277 at home, 261 on the road. But I will say for Tovar's power, at least he went 13-13 home and away. That is a nice, compelling note. But man, I'm with you. Like I can't deny how bad the plate skills are. By the same token, though, he's still got some fantasy work done. I got a few shares, so I'm gonna raise my hand here. I'm not gonna pretend that I'm fully out because I got a few shares of Tovar, and I'm not necessarily against it.
I'm not saying you shouldn't draft it, right? Like the upside is massive, right? When we saw a bit of that upside last season, and one of the things about Tovar is he is that premium defender, right? So
so the playing time is stone cold lock.
Yeah, like he had almost 700 plate appearances last year, 655 plate appearances last year. Like he'll probably get that again as long as he's healthy. And there's no reason to think that a guy who is 23 years old and not going to be 24 until August can't stay healthy. Here's the thing, and I think this is what people have to realize, and the reason why he is so low in my ranks. I think that batting average is going to crater. I know that he is in Coors, and that really, really helps things. But man, like those underlying hit tool skills are just really scary.
Bad, dude.
They're
really bad. He's hit 253 and 269 the last 2 years, so you've really survived it. He went 15-11 back in 2023 for Ezekiel Tovar, and then, like I said, 26-6 this year. So it is a really difficult profile to deal with, right? Because you look at those plate skills, you vomit all over the place, and then you look at the fantasy numbers, and you're like, well, he's still got the job done. So at pick 131, I don't think he's overpriced. I don't deny any of your concerns. I think they are fair, but I do think at least the market is judging him at a pretty fair price point.
This is a roster construction thing, though.
Absolutely. If you take a 240, you have to decide, can you take 650 plate appearances of a 240?
No, well, I think you have to factor in like the potential of like 655 plate appearances of a potential like 210.
Like that's fair too. If his BABIP cratered, Tovar could feasibly be hitting.
And I didn't project it to. I projected him to hit 244.
Okay.
right? So like I think the batting average does come down, but it doesn't fall off the map. And I've given him I think 22 or 23 home runs,
Okay.
a fair amount of RBIs and runs. I mean, kind of commiserate with the fact that he plays in Colorado and it's Colorado, so like
Right.
who knows what the offense around him may look like. But I mean, I like Brendan Doyle. They've got other interesting guys and like Ryan McMahon on this
Tolia.
roster. Yeah, Tolia, right? So like, I don't think he's good. It's not like he's playing in Miami, right?
Right. Oh, I wouldn't. You couldn't pay me. I mean,
Yeah.
his ADP would have to be 230 to get me to look at
So
Tovar in Miami. The fact that he's in Colorado obviously does a lot of the heavy lifting here to give you some hype that, like, okay, if I can get a 250 something with 20 bombs and a handful of
just
chip in steals, I'll take it.
just don't pair him with batting average risks. Like
Right. If you put a bunch of other guys,
yeah,
you could be really setting yourself up. Don't be going O'Neal Cruz, Ezekiel Tovar. You could be getting a
exactly.
combined 220 out of those guys.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's totally fair. Your fears are reasonable, and you just have to decide where you're at with your team construction. All right, let's talk Bo. You got a flashy new haircut, looking sharp still. Doesn't have his long flowing locks anymore. By the way, I think it's a crime if you got that good of long hair to cut it. As
Mhm.
somebody who's got dog shit hair, come on, man, that's not fair. But anyway, maybe he cut it just to try to change the vibe up because things have been roof. Just kind of a washout season, right? Only played half the year, 81 games, 4 homers, 5 steals, 225. Like it is just a complete crap season for Bo Bichette. Are you washing it away, re-racking and jumping back in here? Or do you carry some concerns after the ugly season there for Bichette that has you tapping the brakes for this year? Where do you stand on Bo?
I don't know what Bo Bichette is. And
I don't
that's what
think
it
the
comes
Jays
down
do
to.
either.
Yeah, and I just like I want Bichette to get back to being the guy who had 20 home run power and stole double-digit bases with a good batting average. And I do think the batting average will come back. Like I will kind of throw out a lot of 2024. I think he was just hurt,
Right.
and I think all reports are that he's going to be fine entering spring training, or he's supposed to be fine entering spring training. But like even if he is, like we're talking about a guy who is probably a low 20s or high teens homer guy. He's only going to steal a handful of bags. And you get a good batting average, but that's it. It's kind of empty batting average. And he's a guy coming off of pretty much missing a half season, or exactly missing a half
Yeah.
season last year. Like, can that batting average in like 500 plate appearances carry the weight that it needs to make him worth being picked?
And he goes right after Tovar, so those two are right next to each other. Let's say you're facing needing a shortstop at that point. I know you would just wait for somebody else, but I'm gonna force you to pick one at that price, at that 130 something price point. Tovar or Bichette?
Tovar.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. We found a
Yeah.
situation where Justin will take Tovar. There you go. And I'm with you. I would too. I am nervous about Bichette. I'm still also sore at him because it was looking like he wasn't going to bring his minor league steals to the table. I started to, kind of project him that way. And then he goes 25 for 26 in 2021. And they're like, oh, well, I guess he runs now. And then he goes 13 for 21, 5 for 8, and 5 for 6. So it was a stone cold fluke there in
Yeah.
2021. It was a finger injury. So everything says he's a full go and ready to go. Again, this is another situation. I actually don't even hate that price point. I would definitely take Tovar above him. Now, is there
Yeah.
anything he could do in spring that would get you on the Bo train?
He'd have to do a lot. I mean, he would have to
You have
be
to be running a
hitting.
bunch
He'd have to
and
be
just hitting
running
the
bunch
cover.
and hitting the cover off the ball, right? Like,
Okay.
well, actually, honestly, even if he's just running a bunch, because and like he looks healthy from a
Right.
hitting standpoint. Because if he started running a bunch, we know he has speed. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just he hasn't been allowed to run. So I mean, if he goes back to being a 20-2300 guy, that's interesting. So like for me, I'm making sure he's healthy and I'm checking to see if he is stealing bases. If he's not running, then I'm probably because running in spring training is one of those things that
Yep.
can't translate over
Attempts
to.
matter.
So if he looks healthy and he's running, I might bump him up quite a bit.
Yeah, I think Bo is definitely one of those guys that all eyes will be on him in spring. And Toronto as a whole, right? They disappointed last year. They're in kind of a weird spot. You know, they brought in Santander because they got an older team. It's hard to really rip it down. They got Andres Jimenez coming in. They have some compelling pitchers. Scherzer obviously joins the mix with Gosman, Berrios, Bassett, and Bowden Francis. So, like, I can see how you can make a case to kind of be in on them a bit. I'm not personally, but like, if Bo pops off, that could be massive for them. But as it stands right now, I need to see something in spring before I take him because not only would I rather take Tovar, I'd rather take Volpe, who goes around the same ADP, and then there's guys later, you know, that we've already talked about, like Bogarts and them, that I would just and Win that I would just go for instead of Bo. So I'm out right now. But if I could also be moved in spring by the same stuff you could be. Let's go to Zach Neto because he got some good news. He's down at pick 200 right now. He got some good news on his shoulder. So they're saying that things are positive. And this is a very recent report here from February 12th. Neto said he received, quote unquote, good news on surgically repaired right shoulder and is ahead of schedule. We always temper expectations there. I always reference our boy Jason Collette. He's always keen on those timetables to push them out a little bit further. But this has to be nice. If you're a Neto person and you've been taking kind of the discount, you gotta feel good about getting some positive news here. Where do you stand on him? Because again, the price point at pick 200, I think bakes in a lot of that concern for the shoulder. But this could be a guy that, you know, one false move and all of a sudden the timetable expands the other way and things blow up in your face. Is Zach Neto somebody you're in on right now, or do you have to see him play?
I drafted Zach Neto in some early leagues before I realized he was probably going to miss time at the start of the season, and I kind of dropped him in kind of in relation to that report. So I love seeing the news, but for me, I think I really want to see him play. But I do love Zach Neto. I think he is a premium accumulator. He plays for Ron Washington, who just absolutely loves to run.
Turn him loose.
Yeah, so like I think the 30 stolen bases are definitely something that could happen. I think my issue right now is like, hey, I don't know that I can project him for 20 plus homers if I'm like right now I've got him I think projected for around 500 plate appearances.
Okay.
So I think he's probably more of a teens homers guy in that regard. But I do think he has power. I do think he has speed. Just we got to see if he's healthy. If he's healthy, I'm going to be all in. And I think I mentioned this on the pod a few weeks ago. I did see like a video of him like doing shoulder like weightlifting.
Yep.
Now, I always like remember when we saw like Alejandro Kirk, like, oh look, he's in the gym, he's slimmed down, like best shape of his life. Like I don't believe a lot of that stuff.
We got to be careful on that stuff. It doesn't guarantee anything.
The fact he's doing big weights with that shoulder gives me some hope that hey, he might be ready for the start of the season or close after. But yeah, I would probably be careful, especially in leagues where you don't have a lot of ILO spots,
right?
To be drafting him, and then drafting, especially another guy who might be injury prone or already injured.
Yep, I think that's totally fair with regards to Zach Neto, but keep an eye on that news because if it continues to get positive news and he's starting to beat his timetable more and more, then I think you can get some real excitement behind him. Let's talk a little bit about Joey Ortiz. He's got a 10-game qualification, so if you play in lighter qualification leagues, you can get him at short, and he's going to be gaining it in season too because he's going to be the shortstop. Terang's going to stay at second, and with Adames out, Ortiz is going to become the everyday shortstop. So even if you don't have it at the draft table, you will eventually get that short. So that's going to make him the short third base, give you that middle corner there. He goes around pick 288, which I think is a fair price here. I'm kind of intrigued by him. I think he could become one of these next nice accumulators. He went 11-11 last year, only hit 239. I think he could actually improve there. He has decent walk and strikeout rates, 11% walk, 20% K rate. I'm not going to project like a major power spike, but Milwaukee runs too. So I do think there's a world where if things kind of get going, Joey Ortiz could maybe even chase down 20 steals. Like he's not a burner or anything, but like I think he's got the skills to possibly flirt with that. And price point 288 doesn't seem too bad. Where do you come out on Joey Ortiz right now?
I feel like I'm a clairvoyant, and then I knew exactly what you were going to say because we discussed him on the Second Base podcast. So,
We did. God, I'm the worst. I
thought
I got everybody.
I think the upside in Joey Ortiz is never going to be in power. He does not strike the ball particularly hard, uh, and so I think there is upside in the batting average and in the stolen bases. He's on a team that likes to run. He does have some speed in there, and he just makes a crap ton of in zone contact. So I think
Hmm.
there are going to be years where the batting average fluctuates, but he can probably consistently run a little bit higher BABIP with how much contact he makes and that speed. So I think like I said in the second base preview, I think Ortiz is a really interesting dude for deeper leagues as your MI, and that can kind of accumulate, but also has some upside in the batting average and speed department.
Yep, co-sign that all the way. Ha-Seong Kim was not in the second base preview because he played 121 games at short last year. He's going out to Tampa Bay though, so he has his news has changed recently, but he's still going to miss time. We know that there's going to be some time missed here. Let me see what the latest report was. I think we're looking at a
So
month
like
or two.
May or June, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm this they're targeting late May for his debut. So that's about 2 months in
Yeah.
the tank. That takes him out for us in draft champions and main events and stuff like that. So it's another situation where you got to have a bunch of IL spots to take him. But where are you at with him for 4 months? Do you think he's somebody, because we've loved him on this show for a long time. Is he somebody that you're going to jump in on in spots where you can just reserve him for that period of time? Or is 2 months missed with a shoulder injury too much for you with Ha-Seong Kim?
Yeah, it's too much for me. I love Ha-Seong Kim. We both love Ha-Seong Kim. He's
Yep,
my dude. I think this was a really smart signing by Tampa Bay. That being said, this is more of a pickup off the wire kind of guy, uh,
absolutely agree.
especially in your 10s and 12s. But even in your 15s, like I just don't want to hold that roster spot for that long on a guy
Mm-mm,
like
can't
Ha-Seong
do
Kim.
it. I just
So
can't.
for me, unless I have unlimited IL spots or a lot of IL spots, I'm just not touching Kim.
Yep, I'm fully co-signed there. Wishing him the best, and I will try to pick him up where he's available off the waivers, but I'm not drafting him anywhere. Tommy Edman moved out to LA last year. Remember, he was injured before the trade. They knew they were buying, somebody who was not ready necessarily to go. In fact, he didn't even play with St. Louis a single game last year. Ends up playing 37 with the Dodgers, and it was not great. I mean, he was fine. He was like kind of league average, 6 homers, 6 steals in those 37 games, but then had a big playoff. Really, really popped off during the playoffs, particularly in the NLCS against the Mets. There had 11 runs driven in and a 407 average against them. All in all, a really good playoff. So he ended things on a high note. He's going to have shortstop outfield eligibility, and I'm pretty hot on Tommy Edman. How do you feel about him this year?
I think it really just comes down to health with Edmund. I think, I mean, he's in a really good position here. I think he's going to play every day in LA as their center fielder, and it's not like they've got a crap ton in that outfield.
Two
Now that they
games
moved,
shy of shortstop everywhere, by the way. It's 18
yeah,
games. So that's a
and
bummer because
I
he's
don't
not
think
going
he's
to add
getting
that.
that. Yeah, I don't think he's getting that unless something happens to Mookie. If something happens to Mookie, then maybe he would move over there. But even that, I don't know because did they bring back Rojas? I honestly can't even remember if they brought.
Yeah, Rojas still on the team, so they'd probably go to
So
Rojas. So
it'd probably
yeah,
go Rojas because the
I
defense
don't
is
think
so
he
good.
adds it. I think you
So
got an outfielder here unless you play in something that requires fewer than 20 games.
I think you kind of go back to who he was prior to getting hurt, because I mean he looked good in the playoffs, right? So like a 15-25, a 15-30 guy,
Mm-hmm.
with a mediocre and kind of unstable batting average, but
But on
probably
the
been,
best team in the universe.
but yeah, on the best team in the universe. That means he's going to hit at the bottom of the lineup, though, right? So
True. That's a fair
like
point. Yep.
you can't you can't give him a ton of plate appearances, but the plate appearances he does have are going to be really good because when he's pretty much hitting from that 8 spot and restarting that lineup. So like he's going to be on base a lot of times with Shohei, Mookie, and Freddie Freeman coming up. Like that
Even in the 8 spot, the runs could be hot for Edman.
in
Absolutely.
LA, like it's one of the few places where like we could see a guy score 90 runs from the
Mm-hmm.
8 hole.
Yep, and that is compelling to me. Pick 175, I think, is totally fair. The market's not overvaluing Tommy Edman. Yeah, I'm in. He's a player I've liked in his St. Louis days. I'm excited by this move here being on LA, even though he is going to be a bottom third of the order guy. That's fine by me. I'll slot him in my outfield. And then again, if you're playing like a Yahoo or something that requires lower eligibility, you can get that shortstop eligibility. But that is it. He had one game at second base. So I guess if you have one game eligibility, that would work. But really, you're going to be shortstop for the 18 games and then the outfield 24. But yeah, fully in on Edman and eager to see how he looks coming off that huge playoff. All right, let's go ahead and cap it here. We'll do the final tier and then the final two tiers on Monday. We got a bunch of guys that were discussed at second base, and then we'll do our long shots and kind of wrap up shortstop. But we are moving through these position previews, man. I've just been in a good mood all week. First off, I'm fully over the sickness, 100%. And just so much baseball stuff going on. Like MLB, the show's putting out things about their next game. We're working on our stuff over at Out of the Park Baseball. Fantasy baseball's popping up. It is baseball season, man. I know it's, cold in a lot of spots. It's actually been very cold here in Austin. And I'm not just talking Sporer cold. I mean, it's been 30s and shit. So, the weather's a bummer, but everything else is a positive right now, Justin, because baseball is back. So I'm very excited. We will talk Monday. And again, we're going to 3 eps a week. So you'll get us Monday, midweek, and then Friday. So we'll go to third base after that. So we'll finish up shortstop on Monday, get to the hot corner, and we'll be trucking along with these previews.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. Baseball is finally back, baby.
Yes, thank God. Take care.
Take it easy.